Cheers. Hello. Welcome to another Tuesday afternoon tea and chat with me, Basil. I'm working Trowbridge and Westbury Library. Today I'm in Westbury Library upstairs by a lovely fireplace with pictures above the mantelpiece and a teddy just in the corner there as well. I hope you're sitting comfortably and have got your kettle on. Today I'm going to read some poems from some new books we've got just in the library. Been loads of new things coming in recently, so I'm quite excited about that. But before I start, I'd just like to say hello to everyone at Goodson Lodge, to Alex and Tim in particular, and the ladies and gents at Goodson Lodge who hopefully will be watching now or shortly after as well. They gave me a request earlier. If you ever want a poem read out by us on Tea and Chat, please get in touch beforehand. Look out for that later. Okay. Well, as I said, we've got loads of new books coming into the library. We're not stopping buying, even though we've not been open so many hours. And I've got a good selection here to go through with you. I'm going to start with a collection from the Poetry Pharmacy. So William Sieghart is a poet and a writer, and he collects poems to prescribe to you if you have things going on in your life. This is the second collection. It's called The Poetry Pharmacy Returns, and I was skimming through this over the weekend and I found this one which I thought was quite apt for now. It's a prescription to help you with fear of change. And what he says is, well, many of us, particularly city dwellers, have lost touch with the cycles that used to govern all human life. With artificial light, radiators and air conditioners, global trade and travel, and we've technologised our way out of the need to do each thing in its time. And in doing so, have lost a sense of our connection to the earth, and one of the most powerful metaphors for human life. This short poem is a mantra for living a balanced life based on the old rhythms of season, month, and time. Okay, it's called To Everything There Is a Season, and it's from Ecclesiastes in the Bible. To everything there is a season, and a time to every purpose under the heaven. A time to be born, and a time to die. A time to plant, and a time to pluck up that which is planted. A time to kill, and a time to heal. A time to mourn, and a time to dance. A time to cast away stones, and a time to gather stones together. A time to embrace, and a time to refrain from embracing. A time to get, and a time to lose. And a time to keep, and a time to cast away. A time to rend, and a time to sow. A time to keep silence, and a time to speak. A time to love, and a time to hate. A time of war, and a time of peace. That's To Everything There Is a Season from Ecclesiastes. What he also wrote at the bottom, he said, we learn the most about ourselves when we're suffering. When our days are darkest, we can comfort ourselves with the knowledge that this is but a season. Summer, like winter, will come again. Good and bad alike will pass, just as they should. So that's from the Poetry Pharmacy by William Sieghart, a great book to dip in and out of. Okay. Another one, now I know a lot of you know Thomas Hardy, I'm sure. I love Thomas Hardy. I've read a lot of his books, not quite all of them, all his stories, Mayor of Casterbridge, Tess of the Daffodils and so on. He wrote a lot of poetry. This is a short collection of some of the poems of Thomas Hardy, selected by Claire Tomerlin. This is a great one, all about trains and waiting rooms, a thing close to my heart. We'll travel more soon in the future. In a Waiting Room by Thomas Hardy. On a morning sick as the day of doom, with a drizzling grey of an English May, there were a few in the railway waiting room. About its walls were framed and varnished pictures of liners, fly-blown, tarnished. The table bore a testament for travellers reading if such wise bent. I read it on, and thronging the Gospel of St. John were figures, additions, multiplications by someone scrawled with sundry emendations, not scoffingly designed, but with an absent mind, plainly a bagman's costs, what he had profited, what he had lost. And whilst I wondered if there could have been any particle of a soul in that poor man at all, to cipher rates of wage upon that printed page, there joined in the charmless scene and stood over me and the scribbled book to lend the hour's mean hue a smear of tragedy to. A soldier and his wife, with haggard look, subdued to stone by strong endeavour. And then I heard from a casual word, they were parting, they believed, forever. But next there came like eastern flame of some high altar, children, a pair, who laughed at the fly-blown pictures there. Here are the lovely ships that we, mother, are by and by are going to see. When we get there it's sure to be fine, the bland will play and the sun will shine. It rained on the skylight with it in, as we waited, and still no train came in. But the words of the child in the squalid room had spread a glory through the gloom. But the words of the child in the squalid room had spread a glory through the gloom. I hope you like that. That's one of Thomas Hardy's poem, In a Waiting Room. Just as I started on this lovely English May, I had rain bashing against the windows. I don't know if you heard it, but it was very loud. Now, at the beginning I said that Goodson Lodge, who are watching, hello to Alex and Tim and to all the ladies and gents at Goodson Lodge. They told me one of their favourite poems. They gave me a whole list, but one of their favourites is Daffodils. Still just about in spring, there's still plenty of daffodils about. So I thought we could read this one. An old favourite, join in if you know it, The Daffodils by William Wordsworth. I wandered lonely as a cloud that floats on high over vales and hills, when all at once I saw a crowd, a host of golden daffodils, beside the lake, beneath the trees, fluttering and dancing in the breeze. Continuous as the stars that shine and twinkle on the Milky Way, they stretched in never-ending line along the margin of the bay. 10,000 saw I at a glance, tossing their heads in a sprightly dance. The waves beside them danced, but they outdid the sparkling waves in glee. A poet could not but be gay in such jocund company. I gazed and gazed, but little thought for what wealth the show to me had brought. For oft, when on my couch I lie in vacant or in pensive mood, they flash upon that inward eye which is the bliss of solitude. And then my heart with pleasure fills, and dances with the daffodils. A lovely, nice poem again. Hope you enjoyed that rendition of the Daffodils from the nation's favourite poems. An older book in the library, but one of my favourites. Got all great poems in there. The Daffodils. I'm going to stick with staying in the Lake District, actually. Browsing through this one earlier on. It's a Giles Brand collection. It's called Dancing by the Light of the Moon, which comes from the story of the Owl and the Pussycat. There's a little picture of an owl and a pussycat on the front there. It's a whole collection of poems that you can learn by heart, memorise, enjoy, transform your life, change the way you think. Okay, but this one's by Christina Rosetti, and it's another romantic poem about the Lake District. It's called The Lambs of Grasmere. The Lambs of Grasmere by Christina Rosetti. The upland flocks grew starved and thinned, their shepherds scarce could feed the lambs, whose milkless mothers butted them, or who were orphaned of their dams. The lambs, athirst for mother's milk, filled all the place with piteous sounds. Their mother's bones were white for miles, the pastureless wet pasture ground. Day after day, night after night, from lamb to lamb the shepherds went, with teapots for the bleating mouths instead of nature's nourishment. The shivering little gaping things who knew the step that brought them aid, and fondled the protecting hand and rubbed it with a woolly head. Then, as the days waxed on to weeks, it was a pretty sight to see those lambs with frisky heads and tails, skipping and leaping on the lea, bleating in tender trustful tones, resting on rocky crag or mound, and following the beloved feet that once had sought them and found. These very shepherds of their flocks, these loving lambs so meek to please, are worthy of recording words and honour in due degrees. So I might live 100 years, and roamed from strand to foreign strand, yet not forget this flooded spring and the scarce saved lambs of Westmoreland. Another quite moving one, thinking, looking forwards to the future. Kind of a little bit of a nod, I think, to the Daffodils as well. It's kind of a similar sort of sense and feeling in that poem. Okay, and that's called The Lambs at Grasmere by Christina Rosetti. Okay. Who's not been on the Underground? Who's been on the Underground and seen the poems on the Underground? We've got a nice little collection in this oddly shaped book of poems on the Underground. I'm going to stick with the animal theme and do a favourite for a lot of people. Tyger by William Blake. Tyger, Tyger burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer, what the chain? In what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil, what dread clasp dare its deadly terrors clasp? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tyger, Tyger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? Chugging along on the Underground in London, seeing the poems above the windows. It's a good memory for me. Okay. Poem for every night of the year. Lots of collections, lots of wonderful anthologies in our library. Go and have a look. Go and have a look in your local library. Westbury, where I am today, is open on Tuesdays and Fridays. And Trowbridge, where I also work, is open Mondays, Thursdays and Saturdays. Lots of new poems. These will be back on the shelves next time I'm in Trowbridge as well. This is a poem for every night of the year, collected and edited by Ali Essiri. Today's poem, for the 4th of May, is very, very short. It's a little haiku, which I did last time as well, some short haikus. 4th of May in Japan is known as Greenery Day, a celebration for natural beauty. Okay, and this is a traditional haiku by the most revered Japanese poet called Matsuo Basho. The old pond, a frog jumps in, sound of water. The old pond, a frog jumps in, sound of water. Very succinct, like all haiku are. There's another great one. I was looking through and found this one, which I thought was great for me, the librarian. Oh, well, in fact, I will show you. So in Westbury Library, they've got this mug. And it says on the back, it says First Class Librarian. And on the front, it says, proud to be a public serving, friendly, book stamping, softly spoken, helpful, and well-read librarian. Cheers. And this poem's all about a bookworm. And it's actually literally a worm that ate books. It's an anonymous medieval poem. Bookworm. A worm ate words. I thought that wonderfully strange. A miracle when they told me a crawling insect had swallowed noble songs. A night-time thief had stolen writing so famous, so weighty. But the bug was foolish. Still, though its belly was full of thought. The bookworm. And another one. I was sitting here and I was about to start filming just now, and I looked behind me, and on the mantelpiece behind me there's this thing here. Now, I don't know where it comes from, I haven't looked it up, but maybe that's the librarian for me next time. But it says, for him that stealeth a book from this library. Beware, okay? For him that stealeth a book from this library, let it change to a serpent in his hand and rend him. Let him be struck with palsy and all his members blasted. Let him languish in pain, crying aloud for mercy. And let there be no surcease to his agony till he sink to dissolution. Let bookworms gnaw his entrails in token of the worm that dieth not. And when at last he goeth to his final punishment, let the flames of hell consume him for ever and aye. For him that stealeth a book from this library. In all honesty, we're probably not quite that fierce, but maybe then we should be. Don't ever steal books from the library, just in case. You never know. Right, I'm going to finish with a moralizing poem. A moralizing poem written by Isaac Watts. And it's against idleness and mischief. And it goes like this. It's a little bit of a rhymey one, Victorian. How doth the little busy bee improve each shining hour, and gather honey all the day from every opening flower? How skilfully she builds her cell, how neat she spreads the wax, and labours hard to store it well with the sweet food she makes. In works of labour or of skill I would be busy too, for Satan finds some mischief still for idle hands to do. In books or work or healthful play let my first years be past, that I may give for every day some good account at last. Don't be idle or mischievous. Okay, and the reason I read that was my absolutely last poem. A year of reading aloud 52 poems to learn and love. The idea is you learn one a week and annoy your friends and family and entrance your people you come across with the poems you've learnt off by heart. This one's the Crocodile, which appears in chapter 2 of Alice's Adventures in Wonderland, and is recited by Alice by mistake. She meant to recite the poem I've just recited to you, Against Idleness and Mischief by Isaac Watts, because they start in the same way. Isaac Watts goes, how doth the little busy bee? And the Crocodile parodies this poem. How doth the little crocodile improve his shining tail, and pour the waters of the Nile on every golden scale? How cheerfully he seems to grin, how neatly spreads his claws, and welcomes little fishes in with gentle, smiling jaws. Little bit of a nod and a pastiche, I think, on the other one, okay. And the crocodile's virtues are deception and predation. Maybe not great virtues to have, are they? Okay, well, there's a whole selection of new books, and old ones, in fact, there that I've read. Hope you enjoyed that, and enjoy your cup of tea, and maybe carry on talking about poems with us. Come and see me in the library, and tell us about your favourite poems. We love talking about books, reading, poetry, writing, prose, everything, okay? Everyone take care and stay safe, and I'll see you later. Bye-bye for now. Bye.